Welcome back to the Naturally Yours podcast, where we celebrate our beautiful women of color while spotlighting their success and bringing more awareness to their natural hair and education. So, I'm your host, Ty the Natural, your favorite global natural hair coach, podcast host, and author. And for episode 20, it's going to be another short form video, and it's going to be about the number two pain point for natural hair. So, let's get into it. So, the number two pain point for natural hair is dun, 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 techniques. Yes, techniques. We all struggle with the proper techniques, right? On how we should be doing certain things. So, I'm going to bring you 5 tips to help you better your techniques. Let's start with number one. Number one is study and educate yourself. It's so important to study and educate yourself on how you should be properly taking care of your hair, how you should be properly styling it, how you should be shampooing, conditioning, deep conditioning, how you should be adding your products, or should you be combing your hair? Should you be brushing your hair? All of those sorts of things. It's so important to know this because there's a right and there's a wrong way. And if you do it the wrong way, you're going to be waiting on some hair length for a while because you're going to be damaging your hair to where it's going to seem like it's not even growing because you're not using the proper techniques. And trust me, I know because I used some horrible techniques over the past. And, until I truly educated myself, I had no idea, you know? Number two, learn a style and perfect it. Learn one hairstyle and perfect it. So if you're transitioning or if you're doing a big chop, and what I recommend for big chop people is that you learn how to finger coil because that is a simple and quick way to do your hair, especially since your hair is on the shorter side. You don't have much to coil, and it's going to be easier to detangle your hair when you do a big chop compared to if you transition because you're going to have more hair when you transition compared to when you big chop. Just saying. Even though I never did a big chop, I do know that there are some benefits to the big chop over transitioning, and those are a couple of them. Now with transitioning, you don't have to worry about your hair being so short to where maybe you don't want to coil your hair, maybe you want to wear some twist, or maybe you want some a braid out, or maybe just some other type of style. You can do that when you transition your hair because you're going to have more length. However, the style that you learn to perfect, you have to keep doing it. Okay. I know they always would say practice makes perfect, but practicing is definitely going to help you perfect your hairstyle because me personally, I still haven't perfected Bantu knots. Why? Because I don't do it enough. I don't practice over and over and over how to get the Bantu knots right. So therefore, I'm not going to get them right until I start practicing, right? So as you can see, I perfected my braid outs and my wash and goes, over time because I keep doing them. I get more familiar with the process. You learn the process better. You know what I mean? And you can't learn the process if you're not doing it. So make sure you're practicing that one hairstyle so that you can perfect it and at least have a go to style. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, that's going to lead us into number three. And number three is what I would recommend far as hairstyles to learn when you're first starting off. So my number one thing for you to learn, and because it's low maintenance, is a twist out, 2-strand twist. I don't recommend the 3-strand twist because those are more complicated, especially if you're just starting out. So I recommend 2-strand twist. And you want to make sure that you have the equal amount of hair on both sides so that you're not running out of hair before you get to the end. You know what I mean? That way you have, a healthy twist with the same amount of hair on each side. And that way your coil is going to be come out perfected. Your coil will be perfected when you have the right amount of hair on each side. And twist also stretch your hair somewhat. And it's a low maintenance style. So therefore, you're not causing a lot of tension or manipulation to your hair. So I recommend for all beginners to learn the two-strand twist. And it doesn't take very long. The second style that I recommend, maybe after your twists get old and it just doesn't look as good as it did, I recommend a puff. Pull your hair back, get you a nice elastic band, and apply a puff. Maybe a high puff, maybe a low puff, maybe a middle puff, you know? But I recommend that you do learn both of those styles. But I do want to put this in there. Do not apply a high puff or any puff to your hair every day, every week. You don't want to do that because it's going to cause too much tension on your edges and baby hairs and your nape. And that will cause breakage, shedding, and damage. So just be on the safe side and maybe leave it up a couple of days and then take it down. And I wouldn't leave the elastic bands on your head when you go to sleep. I would remove them because those elastic bands can, stop our blood circulation. And if our blood isn't getting to our scalp, then what do you think is going to happen? The hair is not going to grow there because it's not getting enough blood. So just keep that in mind when you are doing a puff. Number 4 is going to be always make sure that you are moisturizing your hair before you manipulate it. Never work on dry hair. Why? Because our hair is so fragile. And if you work on dry, brittle hair, it is going to break off. There's no way around it. It's going to break off, or it's going to split or crack. So make sure that you are spritzing your hair with some water, or it can be water in a conditioner concoction. It can be aloe vera juice and water, or it can be vegetable glycerin and water in a spray bottle. But make sure that you keep a concoction on hand so that you can spritz your hair, because it should be done at least every day, if not twice a day, depending on your environment. But some of us may need twice a day, especially with this heat index that we've been dealing with, or when it's really hot. You may find yourself moisturizing your hair more than once, and that's perfectly fine. Doesn't mean anything's wrong, just means that your moisture is evaporating. And so you have to put that moisture back into your hair in order to avoid breakage and damage. So that was number 4. And number 5, our final tip, is going to be, before you do anything with your hair, always work in sections. Always. It's so important that we work in sections because our hair is so fragile and our hair tangles up. So when you're working for sections, it's easier for your hair to not tangle up as much, because if you're working with all your hair at one time, for one, you're going to end up using the same hair over, meaning you're going to apply the same technique to whatever you were doing to your hair at first over again, because you don't know, because you don't have it sectioned. Then you got to worry about your hair knotting up, tangling up, because you don't have it sectioned. So it's very, very important to work in section, and it's going to help you feel less overwhelmed. Trust me, working with all of this as a whole is overwhelming and very challenging. Let's help ourselves out here. Let's work in sections and let's take the overwhelming aspect out of it. Because when you work in sections, it's so much easier. And you can do a little party dance after you finish each section just to help keep building you up and keep you going. It's the small things. The small things really matter. And that's one of them. Before you do anything, spritz your hair, then put it in sections. And you need clips for that. So make sure you find you some non-tension clips that are not going to break off your hair. So those were my 5 tips. Let me do a quick recap. Number 1 was study and educate yourself on your natural hair so that you know the proper technique, so that you're not adding any damage or breakage to your hair. Number 2, learn one style, one hairstyle, and perfect it. Okay? One hairstyle. Number 3, I recommend that you learn two-strand twist. because it's an easy hairstyle. It's not very time consuming. And if you're working in sections, you can just do 4 twists and be done with your hair. Or you can break them into 2 sections and have 8 twists and then be done. So it's just easier with twist. And it's a low manipulation style. So it's going to be less tension for your hair. Number 4, always work with moisturized hair. Never work on dry hair to avoid breakage and damage. Number 5, for our last one, make sure that you're always working in sections. It's so important that we work in sections so that we're not adding any extra 2-strand knots, tangles, and breakage to our hair. So if you enjoyed these 5 tips how to get your techniques right, then make sure you leave me a comment below. Make sure you share this out with someone in your family, your friends, somebody that's struggling on their natural hair journey, because they're out there and they don't know about this podcast. So the only way for us to spread the awareness on the podcast is if you guys be so kind to share this out. So that was episode 20, guys. The number 2 pain point for natural hair. I hope you guys enjoyed this content. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, be sure to rate the podcast. It really helps me out. I really, really appreciate you guys listening and being here. And I'm going to catch y'all on the next episode. All right. Peace.